It was the kind of accident that people don't walk away from. And unfortunately, my two youngest children didn't. They were thrown from the car and they passed away that day. And our lives were changed forever. I started saying in my head, like a mantra, thank you, angels, for bringing the whales close to the boat. Thank you, angels, for bringing the boat close to the whales. And within literally a few minutes, we were surrounded by whales.
Hello, Wastebusters, and welcome to a mid-May edition of the Waste Not, Want Not podcast. I saw a lovely post the other day from a gentleman by the name of Stephen Grant, who was talking about 6 places never to waste your energy. And I thought, I just have to share this with you because that is the essence of the podcast itself. It's how to conserve your own energy. So here goes. Don't waste your energy on people who don't support you. Not everyone is meant to walk your journey with you. Invest your energy where it's valued, not where it's ignored. Don't waste your energy on what others think about you. You lose yourself trying to manage other people's opinions. Peace begins when you stop seeking approval. Don't waste your energy on one-sided relationships. If you're the only one trying, it's not a connection, it's exhaustion. Relationships should feel mutual and not draining. Don't waste your energy on people who need you only occasionally. Some people only show up when it benefits them. Just notice the patterns and protect yourself. Don't waste your energy on solving problems that aren't yours. You can support others, but don't have to carry their burdens. Protect your mental space. And lastly, don't waste your energy on things you can't control. Worrying about outcomes, people or situations beyond your control only drains you. Focus on your actions. That's where your power is. It's a really hard lesson for all of us to put ourselves first. Us women are particularly good at helping everybody else bar ourselves. Your energy is limited, so spend it where it brings peace and not pressure. Talking of energy, I'd love for you to invest your energy in this episode. My guest is a spiritual teacher, a psychic medium, and a grief specialist. Julie Cluff's work is rooted in compassion and lived experience. She's built a special bond with her angels and guides who have supported her through the most devastating tragedy that she described as something that left a great big hole in her heart. I recorded this conversation on the 25th of April, and the reason I say that is because she makes mention of a convention the up and coming weekend, which was actually last weekend. Interestingly enough, it was a convention where the MC was Betty Guandango, who I interviewed about 6 months ago. So it's lovely that the network of people coming together. Julie's actually on the board of directors for a non-profit organisation called Living God's Light, which is founded by a gentleman by the name of Vinnie Tolman, who was pronounced dead and in a body bag. This is back in 2002. And thanks to the intuition of a paramedic, he put all protocol to one side, and Vinnie is alive today because of this paramedic. And he had actually been dead for about half an hour or so. Quite an extraordinary story. All these people who've had these experiences, and the reason I'm bringing them to you is so that you can appreciate there's so much more to this physical life that we're living beyond our perception with our 5 senses. And that's why I've got these guests talking to you who share their own lived experiences of it. So if you're slightly skeptic, just open your mind a little bit and take what serves you and leave the rest. It's not here to convince you, it's just to help inform you of something that you may never have contemplated before. One of the things that really struck me about the conversation with Julie, she was talking about spiritual autonomy, which is really about taking responsibility for ourselves. And we all grow and evolve at different rates. There's no right or wrong, so do it your way. Enjoy the conversation. I'm very excited to introduce my guest today, Julie Cluff, because for the first time I get to talk to a fellow podcaster. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Thanks, Philippa. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
Starting a podcast, I know why I started mine. Can you let the audience know why did you start a podcast?
So my first podcast came out in 2018 and it was called Build a Life After Loss. It was based on my desire to assist others in healing after major loss because I'd had major losses in my life and I had had big experiences in my life that had brought me to a place of healing and I wanted to offer that for other people. So that was my initial thing. And I think we all have a different way of expressing ourselves in the world. And as I thought about it, I can be a writer, but I'm more of a speaker than a writer. So I enjoy speaking. I enjoy talking to people. And then my podcast that I'm running right now is called Light the Day. And that podcast is a spiritual podcast. It's based on spirituality and spiritual autonomy and
Mm,
sovereignty and discovering our own connection with spirit.
wow.
That came out of my work in grief and healing in many ways and just the core of who I am.
Awesome. So let's go to the major things that happened to you in your life that had influenced you. Now, before we do that, let's keep the audience on the edge of their seats. When you were talking about the spirituality, did you have any upbringing that influenced you at all in that line?
I did because I was brought up in a very conservative Christian home.
Right.
And while I no longer practicing in that religion of my upbringing, there was spiritual training. It was an unusual experience because in the religion that I was brought up in, there was a lot of talk about revelation and revelatory experiences. And so that was a part of the soup that I swam in. And that's a little unusual in
Mm,
a conservative Christian background. But for years and years, honestly, for a long time, I allowed religion to define my spirituality and to
right.
give me context for my spirituality. And eventually, what happened is it got too big to fit in that box.
And eventually you had that revelatory experience that actually helped you find your own content. So can you take us to the experiences you've intonated?
Yes, multiple experiences. I typically kind of start my story to a certain extent on my loss and my recovery, my grief recovery. But if it's okay with you, I would love to start in a different place.
Awesome.
So, after my loss and my healing journey, which I will share, but I was having some experiences where I was receiving signs from the other side. And in this case, it was the number 12. And I'm born on the 12th of May. So 12s had significance to me. And it got to the point where I was seeing so many 12s. And I'm a very skeptical person. Like math was my favorite subject. I like numbers. I like things to be in order. I like things to make sense. And so I would hear people talking about the signs they were receiving from loved ones or from spirit, and I'd be a little skeptical of it. But it got to the point where, like, I could not ignore it anymore. Every time I looked at a clock, every time I looked at a license plate, every time I looked at a sign, like, more than 50% of the time there was a 12 there. And it still happens to me today. And so every time I look at the clock, it's like 12 minutes after the hour.
What does 12 mean? Because that implies that you have an interest in numerology.
Well, in my estimation, well, that was also the interesting part was because I was like, okay, what do these 12s mean?
Yep.
And as I looked up 12, I found so many definitions for 12.
Right.
And I didn't really, quite frankly, didn't land on a definition.
Aha.
But what I did land on was something is trying to communicate with me. And it opened me up to the angelic realm because I was looking up angel number 12. So I started learning about angels and I started learning about communicating with angels and connecting with that angelic realm, not realizing I had literally been doing it for years. So maybe we'll get back to that part of the story too. But as I learned about angels and I learned to communicate with them and I learned to experience them in this different way, a few years ago, probably 3, maybe 4 years ago now, I can't remember exactly. I was on a whale watching trip. So
Oh.
we were off the coast of Mexico. It was the first time my husband and I had ever been on a whale watching trip. We were out in the water, and frankly, I was really grumpy. I was really grumpy. I'm like, this is the worst whale watching trip ever. This boat is crap. We're not seeing anything. This is going to be a dud of a whale watching trip. And in that moment, Philippa, I heard in my head, Julie, you have angels. And when I heard that, my spirit lifted, my vibration increased, all of that happened in that moment because I was reconnected to that realm. And I started saying in my head, like a mantra, thank you, angels, for bringing the whales close to the boat. Thank you, angels, for bringing the boat close to the whales. And I just repeated that like a mantra in my head. And within literally a few minutes, we were surrounded by whales. We had whales on the left. We had whales that came up on the left, and then they came up on the right, and then they came up on the front right. And then we had a whole pod of dolphins swimming alongside of us. And they were playing in the water better than any sea park experience you could have. It was spectacular. I was so filled with bliss. It's hard for me to explain what that felt like. It was being lifted out of this third dimensional place of form and being transported into this magic of this experience. And it was spectacular. And I was so delighted, and of course, continued the mantra, thank you, angels, thank you, angels. And as our guide on our boat said, this has been fabulous. He said, you guys have great energy. And as he said, unfortunately, it's time for us to get back to shore. The whales started to swim away, and one whale came up and put his tail up in the water. And maybe you've seen this before, and started slapping the water. There's a technical scientific term for that, but in my mind, he was waving goodbye. And then they swam away. And Philippa, it was the next day, I received a very distinct message that said, Julie, start teaching about angels. And I went home from that trip and started teaching people about angels. I'm actually speaking at a conference next weekend on spirit communication and angels and spirit guides and connecting with our loved ones. So I just want to start with that story because
It's brilliant
that
because
is the culmination of my experience. Yeah.
it really illustrates the point that because it is in another dimension and we cannot perceive it with our own limited senses, we have to experience it for ourselves, and then you can't go back. So the authenticity of it, and some people, and they will continue, will think you're on another planet, and that really doesn't matter because it's your experience and you're sharing it with others, and you're not the only one. So
Yeah.
again, it is life's experiences that actually help us along the path. That's an all-time high. What was the low and the journey to get back to where the whales?
Right. Yeah. So there was a few moments in my life where a hole was created in my heart. There were really challenging experiences. The passing of my brother, he died by suicide. And then a couple of years later, my first marriage ended and I had 3 small children. And life felt really challenging. I had 3 children from my first marriage and then remarried, and we had 3 more children. So we had 6 children we were raising, and life was really full and really busy and really good. It had really become just a very rich, beautiful life. And I was at that point in life where I was like, okay, I can put all of the hard behind me and just be in the present moment and not be waiting for the next shoe to drop. But unfortunately, the next shoe dropped. My youngest kids were with me and we were on a road trip. and my 12-year-old son, my 10-year-old daughter, and my 8-year-old son were on this trip with me. And unfortunately, in the middle of this road trip, I fell asleep at the wheel. I had never even felt sleepy that day. There was no warning, there was no anything, but I woke up and I was bouncing along off the highway. And when I tried to bring my vehicle back up on the highway, we started to roll. And we rolled quite a distance. We rolled all the way from one side of the highway across two lanes into the other side of the highway. And sometime during that, I passed out. I realize now, I didn't realize at the time because when you pass out, you don't realize that you passed out, right? But later, I started to realize I had missing time in there. But when I came to, I couldn't see anything. I was kind of blacked out still. And I could hear my 12-year-old son next to me crying. So I knew at least he was, and I hate to say it this way, but at least he was alive
Yeah.
because this was a devastating accident. It was the kind of accident that people don't walk away from.
Mm.
And unfortunately, my two youngest children didn't. They were thrown from the car and they passed away that day. And our lives were changed forever. And me, as the driver of the car, I dealt with post traumatic stress disorder. I dealt with extreme guilt and grief and shame and just horrific emotions and devastation that is hard to imagine. And yet, in the middle of the accident, there were things that happened that I couldn't explain. In the middle of the accident, I remember hearing a voice in my head that told me to bring my arm in. A couple of months later, I learned of a woman who had lost her arm in an accident. And a couple years after that, I met a woman who had lost her arm in a rollover accident as well. So, how do you explain getting this voice, this spirit whispering in your ear to bring your arm in that saved your arm, but didn't wake you up and prevent the accident altogether and prevent my children from passing? The other thing that's interesting, Philippa, is 5 years before this happened, we had moved into a new home. We had moved into a new area, and these same three children were upstairs, and my two youngest had opened the window, and there was a screen on the window, and they were leaning against the screen talking to the dog in the backyard. And as they leaned on the screen popped out and they fell out the second story window onto the hard, yes, both of them together in this freak accident. But they had minor injuries, even though they fell onto concrete. They fell onto the pool deck and minor injuries. And these same two children were the two that were thrown from the car and passed away. Carrie was 10 and David was 8. And, this may be a totally new concept to your audience, but it's a concept that I've become very familiar with. And it's this idea of exit points. And I
Yes.
feel like that was an exit point for them 5 years before.
Yes. Yes, I've heard of that before as well. It's about our destinies kind of, we've organized it before we come, but there are those exit points and we have free will to choose it. But you cannot deny that experience where it was both of them that it
Yeah,
happened to. That's extraordinary, isn't it? It's not coincidental
right.
at all. It's about looking back on life and how you can see the bigger picture.
For
And
sure. Even when my brother passed, he had made an attempt a month or two before, and that's when the family realized what he was dealing with.
right.
He was receiving some help, but then he was successful. That's hard. Like we want to say, okay, well, we could have prevented it or something could have happened, but there was a lot of things that were answered during that time between his first attempt and his successful attempt. Because And I don't often share this, but he was the fourth generation of suicides in our family.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was the first time in the family where an evaluation had been done. There was some answers to what was happening,
Mhm.
to what was happening chemically for him.
Right.
And that gave answers to multiple generations of this type of issue. And grateful that the next generation has been, I will say, saved from that.
It's
Yeah.
that increased awareness, isn't it?
Mhm.
It gives us autonomy to think it's not inevitable. We don't have to worry about it, that we have the power within us to make the change, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of just really challenging things in life, and we ask questions. We say, why did this happen? And how could we have avoided it? And when you think about that miracle of my arm being saved, but my children not, you start to realize, and this is what came online for me, and as things continue to unfold in this way, that this was a plan, that this was part of our soul plan. In fact, a couple of years later, I remember, so I had six children, and my two oldest daughters by this time were in college, and I had my two boys at home, and they were teenagers. And I was dealing with very severe grief symptoms, and I was pretty checked out as a mom, of teenagers, and it's such a hard time.
Yeah.
And this accident, I don't think I gave any time context to it, but this accident happened on Mother's Day, which is a holiday in the States. It happened on Mother's Day, actually my birthday weekend in 2007. So it was 19 years ago. This is a long time. So I've had a lot of time to alchemize my experience, to integrate it, to heal, to have some questions answered in the process.
Mm.
But I was having this moment where I was feeling really sad that my boys were growing up in a different household than my girls had. Because my girls had had the benefit of a mom who was alert and aware in some way, right? Like I was paying attention. But in that grieving space, I was so limited. They were growing up in this household where their mom was completely checked out because I was grieving. It wasn't like they weren't getting meals or weren't being taken care of, but emotionally I was checked out.
Yeah.
And in that state of feeling sad about that, again, that voice in my head, spirit whispering to me and saying this was their plan too.
Wow.
And that was not my thought. That was coming outside of me. That was coming from my guides, the angels, maybe even my children who had passed. I think we get really hung up on where that inspiration is coming from.
Yeah.
But if it's encouraging and it's kind and it's patient and it's loving, then we don't need to get hung up on where it's coming from.
Mm.
We can just take it in. And I really appreciated that message. And it opened my eyes to this wasn't just happening to me. This
Mm.
wasn't just my fault. This was planned. And this was planned with the okay from not just me and not just my kids who passed, but my whole family. I like to say now, I realized that I had a choice before we came here when planning our soul plan. I had a choice. I could be their mother. I could be David and Carrie's mother for 8 and 10 years, or they would have gone to somebody else that would have been willing to take on that role as their
Mm.
mother because that was their plan to come in and wake up a lot of people through their passing.
Mm.
And number one, they woke me up because I was spiritually aware to a certain extent, but again, I was allowing religion to dictate and explain away my
Yeah.
experiences. So I like to say that before they passed, I was asleep and
Yeah.
then I died. when they died.
Mhm.
And then 3 years later, I had a miraculous healing and woke up to this amazing world that we're in. Like the world, when I had that healing, the world became brighter and more joyful than it had ever been before.
Wow. Have you had feedback from your children as to who the mother you were and who they were? And have you had that conversation about the impact of all of it on all of you?
With my children that are here or my children who have passed? With my children that are here, yeah, oh yeah, we've had lots of conversations about it. They have seen the 50 faces of Julie in their lifetime.
Oh, lovely. I love that expression.
Because when we're young, we do things differently. And then we have all this wisdom that comes in as we age, and we can't go back and be the parent that we wish that we had been then,
True.
because that is the nature of our experience here. That is the way that we mature as we have these opportunities to mentor and lead other humans that are coming into the world that are immature. And so in our own immaturity,
Yeah.
we lead and we parent and we learn and we grow. And then we get to that place where they're raising their own children and you're looking and going, boy, I wish I'd done things differently, but we can't go back and redo it. I had a moment, Philippa, you're reminding me of this, and I haven't thought about this in a while. This was about 5 years ago, and my two grown sons with their own wives, their own families were at my house. And these are the two boys that were teenagers 19 years ago. And again, I heard spirit because that's one of my gifts is to hear spirit. I heard spirit say, Julie, this is your opportunity to do it differently. As I was standing in the kitchen with my two boys, we always have this opportunity. And it's not that I'm mothering them, it's not that I'm parenting them, but I get to show up in a different way. And by my showing up in this authentic, real, honest way that I show up now in this new realization of life, I get to pass that on to them. Not in a like, let me sit you down and teach you, but just in an experiential way.
As a role model as well, isn't it? My daughter was contemplating whether she should talk to somebody, sit them down and say something. She didn't want to spoil the relationship by bringing something up and creating a barrier. And I said, well, ultimately, the best thing you can do is be the role model. And
Yeah.
it's really hard because we think we know stuff, but to say this is the right way or have you tried it this way, however you put it out, if you model it, then that's going to be the biggest lesson, and consistently, not just one off, because so many people contradict what comes out their mouth. I remember my children as teenagers basically pulling me up as to what a hypocrite I was. I would say one thing and do something completely different.
Oh, they're really good at noticing things like that, aren't they?
Particularly boys really putting it in your face.
Yeah, when it comes to adults, as children, we have the duty, the obligation to lead and to guide and to direct. But as adults, whoever the adults are in our life, whether they're our children or other relatives or friends or acquaintances, the only time we really have an opportunity to like directly say something is when we're asked for it. I will say there's been a couple of times in my adult children's life where I have felt this desire to share something with them that I'm observing that I think would be helpful to them. I've had adult children for a long, long time, for 19, 20, 21 years. So I've had a lot of time, but I can think of one time that I did this and maybe a couple other times when I've done it. But I will say to them, I'm observing something. Are you open to me sharing what I'm observing?
Mm-hmm.
And I did this with my oldest daughter. She was expecting a baby, and there was a lot of stress. They're young, they've got careers, they've got children. There's just a lot of stress. And I was just noticing some things that I thought would be helpful to her. And so I just said, are you okay if I just give you an observation? And you can totally say no, but we have to mean it. It's not like you can say no if you want to, but that would be smart. You have to mean it. And I truly meant it. I was just like, if you're open to it, I'm willing to share. If you're not, I don't want to share. But she was totally open and she said, absolutely, tell me what you're observing. And I shared with her what I was observing. And she came back to me later and she said, I am so grateful that you shared that with me because it changed a very important relationship for her. But that wouldn't have gone well if I had come to her and just said, let me tell you what I'm seeing, and you need to change this or that. And I only did it as an observation, not like you have to change anything. There's been a few times in my life, Philippa, where I go, wow, I was really smart to do that. But that doesn't happen very often. But that moment taught me so much. And it's taught me as I've moved forward in my life, like, oh, this is the way, like, we have to be really unattached to the outcome. And we have to be really willing to ask for permission, just like your adult children, at least in my family. I don't just walk into their house. I don't even show up at their house unless I call them or say, hey, what are you doing? Is it okay if I come over? And when I get to their house, I knock on the door. It's the same thing, right? It's that respect and that permission to enter.
Well, it brought up for me about people coming forward and asking. I know that's been one of my lessons is to ask for help because Mrs. Independent, part of it, it's an era.
Amen. Amen. I'm with you.
And so with that asking for help, we don't know how to, and then we think we might get pushed back because we have to. But flipping that on the side and thinking about the angels who are with us all the time and they're waiting for us to ask for their help. So how do we connect to them? And how do you know that they're there all the time and waiting for us to ask for help?
Those are such great questions. And I love that you brought that up because they need permission as well. They're not going to just come walking through the door and saying, hey, let me rearrange your life and let me make it the way we think it should look. First, I want to say one of the things that has been really helpful to me in my own journey with the angels is to realize that they're not judging us. They're not walking behind us with a clipboard, writing down everything we do wrong. Some of that messaging can come from different aspects of our conditioning. But when I realized that they are all loving beings, pure love. And when you think of the most loving person you know, and you see how they treat you, how they treat other people, if we take that and times it times 100, that is the energy that our angels are bringing to us. That is the love that they're bringing to us. So if you've ever been around a toddler and they're learning to walk, and the adults are around them, just encouraging them, one more step, baby, one more step, you can do it. And they fall down and they cry, and we just lift them back up and they go, you can do it. That's the relationship we have with the angels. Our relationship with them is as if we are the toddler. We are here in this experience of Earth, which is so different from where we came from. And we're toddling around trying to figure it out, running into the furniture, knocking our noggin into the table. And we're crying and we're upset about the spilt milk. And they're just loving us all the way through it. So that's the first thing to remember. That creates for us, when we start to see it that way, it creates for us an opening where it doesn't feel scary to reach out to source, angels, or guides, because we know that they have our best interest at heart and they are pure love. So that's the first piece. They're not judging us. So when we mess things up and we're like, angels can help me to see how to move forward in this situation, we know that we're going to a loving being that's not judging us, but really does want to inspire us. Just like the angels inspired me to ask my daughter permission rather than barging in and putting my nose where it didn't belong, right? So those moments where I feel extra specially smart, I know I'm just receiving good insight from my guides and my angels, and I can't take credit for that. It's like when I work with my clients now, the amount of love and guidance that comes through is because the angels are there to assist and help and bring that through. There's no judgment. There's no, well, you shouldn't have done that. Now you've made a mess. It's not like our human interactions, right? It's a totally different type of interaction. So it's really quite simple. We overcomplicate it, but it's just like when I said to the whales, thank you, whales, I thanked them. Thank you, angels, for guiding me today. Thank you, angels, for helping me see the good in this person. Thank you, angels, for assisting me in my schedule today so that things run smoothly and people feel loved and cared for. Gratitude is high vibration, high vibration. And we all know what it feels like to feel grateful. And so we just bring that gratitude into our heart. Like, I'm so grateful for you today, Philippa, for this opportunity to have this conversation, to talk to more people about this amazing resource that we have that's going largely untapped because so many people are unaware. So it's having that gratitude. It's just asking, it's looking at what we need help with. Here's one other things that they're calling my attention to. A lot of times we look at the big circumstances of our life. We
Okay.
look at the relationship that's going wrong. We look at the job or the career that's not going the way we want it to. We look at the challenges. Our mind is kind of built, our mind is a tool, but unchecked, it will look for all the problems. And so a lot of times what we're doing is we're going to divine guidance, God, source, whatever terminology you want to use, and we're just asking for blanket help on this big problem.
Yeah.
And then we're frustrated because the big problem isn't disappearing in a day, a week.
A hack. We're looking for a hack.
Yeah, we're like, just get me out, just bail me out of this. Instead of looking at the whole big problem, what if we brought it down to what do we need today? What insight do I need today? What would help me to move forward with this particular situation today? And if we don't know what that is, we can even say, thank you, angels, for bringing me insights into what the very next step is or what I need help with right now. Because I tell you, I've been dealing with a huge personal issue recently, and the amount of insight that they have brought to me this week, it would take me 30 minutes or an hour to share with you all the insights they've brought to me this week because I'm open to it and I'm constantly, it's not like I'm talking to them 24/7 because I'm also present. I have opened my field. I have an open door policy with them. Let's just put it that way. They don't have to knock on the door anymore. The door is open. And so when I'm working with a client or I'm going through my day, they are constantly bringing my attention to, I like Oracle decks. That might not be other people's things, but I like it. I channel messages from the angels. I ask questions and I listen and I write down whatever I'm receiving. I read a lot. Every book I've opened this week has had an insight to the issue that I'm dealing with.
Saying about the mind being a tool, it's a brilliant way because people are talking about AI and things like that. If we just rely on our mind, it's so small, although it has amazing capabilities. Its potential is so small. We limit ourselves and we go round and round and round in circles.
100%.
But because those on the other side, whatever we want to call them, can see that big picture, we can receive clues. Again, it's about being present. And thank you for the insight to help me today. And it's recognizing that it isn't going to be instantly solved, particularly those challenges. Life is a process, and it is the journey that is so scrumptious. I did, it's such a great analogy because I never knew what was going to turn up that day, apart from knowing where I was going to, well, roughly on the map. So I trusted the map. But whatever happened within those 6-7 hours of walking and however I did it, there's a lot of people doing the same thing, but everybody's experience was different. And so for me, I think one of the biggest lessons is each day, those steps. And as you say, having that open door policy, being open to all sorts of opportunities, because if we restrict ourselves to what we think we know, and again, that brings in about not telling other people how to do things, life flows, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And we're really co-creating. So in some cases, I found that as I work with people, I found that some people tend to be like almost paralyzed and afraid to take a step forward unless they feel like they have received direct communication that says, yes, do this. But it's in our movement forward that we receive because we really are co-creating. I've seen two different things. And this is what we tend to do as humans. We either are so independent, I've got to do it myself, I've got to do it myself. And we're over here just trying to figure it all out without calling on that additional help. Or we're so reliant on the help that we've made the help the direction.
Yes, interdependence, not codependent or independent, it's codependent, isn't it?
Yes, that interdependence, like you said, it's like we go within, we start to discover what lights me up, what interests me. It's like talking about the podcast, right? That just sounded fun to me.
Yeah.
Follow your joy. Like there is wisdom in that idea because when we follow our joy, we are literally on the path that our soul chose before we came here. And our mind is a tool, but there's a part of us, and we've all experienced it to some degree, and I think anybody listening to this has experienced it, where we can rise above our circumstances and be the observer instead of the participant. So when we're in the middle of it and we're like, because I've been doing that, I've been spiraling in the middle, and I have to like consciously take myself out above and go, okay, what am I observing here? What is spinning me out? What do I need right now to move
Mm,
forward? What is bringing me joy right now? How can I do more of that and experience more of that? In asking those questions, we're becoming the observer instead of the person spinning in the circumstances. That's where our mind can become the tool because we're directing our mind with good questions. Otherwise, our mind just goes off and it's going
yes.
to cause all kinds of issues for us.
Wow. So what was the inspiration? Because you were talking about the podcast and it sounded like joy. And it was exactly the same for me. I love having conversations with people, and I'm so intrigued as to where the path that,
Same.
and where it's got them and how what they learned. And it's all about the nuggets. But I had no freaking clue what to do or how to do it. So I put my big girl pants on, and well, the angels provided. I worked in this shop, and somebody came in, and he's a film producer. He lived down the road, and he showed me how to edit. And it's like, okay, so what's the next step? And what's the next step kind of thing.
Yep.
Unless you try it, to me, because my story is about failure. So it's not about accomplishing something. To me, failure is not trying. You will always accomplish something, even if you don't get what you think you were aiming for. You will get something much bigger. And 9 times out of 10, you and I can say, this as women in our 60 plus, with all the wisdom we have, there's so many nuggets in the face planting and the things that we did wrong, in quotes.
There are. And yeah, if we're not making mistakes, we're not trying. It's interesting that you say that because I started on the journey of creating a podcast like 10 years ago. It took me several months to launch that podcast, and it was purely audio.
Me
So it
too.
was just sound when I first did that podcast. And that by the time that one came out, it was the fall of 2018, and that ran for 4 years. Well, then I wanted to move a different direction, but it took time for me to kind of really create in my mind, like, what is it that I really want to do? And it was to have conversations like this and explore spirituality, because I think that when we explore spirituality and we hear other people's experiences, when we do that, it helps us to start to integrate and understand our own experiences and
Mm.
go, oh, like we pick up a nugget here, we pick up a nugget here, we pick up more understanding here. Somebody says something that helps us to understand our own experience. And that's really my intent in the podcast that I do. But when I started that podcast, I wanted to do video. And that was a whole different learning curve. And I actually had been so many years since I'd launched the other podcast, technology had changed and the way to do it. And so it was almost like starting over again with a little bit of understanding of how to
Mm.
do it. And now on YouTube, I not only do the podcast once a week, but I post angel messages several times a week. I do a longer Sunday angel message where I channel a longer message and then go through it paragraph by paragraph. Those are a little longer conversations. To me, it's just fun. It's fun. It inspires me to share a message with people and to, have invite other people on to share their message. And we're bringing so much light into the world, and we're one by one, it's like a birthday cake where you light one candle and then that candle goes around and lights the rest of the candles on the cake. That's what we're doing. We're just like lighting up each other and finding our tribe in
And
this
it's opening
experience.
the mind, isn't it? By hearing all these different perspectives, they just show us how to, and we will, rather than thinking too much about it, you will resonate with one person more, or you take a bit of this and a bit of that. And to me, because my background is, my lineage is explorers, because my great 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 grandfather discovered the North Magnetic Pole, and I help people find their true north. To me, it is about exploring and fun, as you said, doing the podcast because it filled you up. Ultimately, when you look at it, all these little teasers or carrots in front of us, sparkles, let's call them sparkles because that's what they are. They're magnets drawing us forward. They actually help ourselves. And again, this is the purpose of my podcast. We do stuff that helps ourselves, which actually in turn helps people around us, that community. That your candle analogy, it's so scrumptious, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's like we're all just gathering in the living room, learning from each other.
Not to take life so blinking seriously. Hey, I mean, obviously, like yourself, when something really horrible, a trauma really happens, there is a lesson, but the pain is so consuming. Nothing else exists.
It,
For somebody to even come up and mention what they observe, you just want to give them a slap. It's about respecting where people are at. With the podcast, you must have learned a huge skill in listening.
yeah, and yes, there's always more work to do in that area, but I love, like you, I can see it in the way that you conduct this conversation. I always have so many questions. And so when people are sharing their story, it's like somebody can share 2 lines and I already have 5 questions. Let's go down this rabbit hole. Let's go down this rabbit hole. Let's go. And we can never do it. Like we could spend 3 weeks talking to a person to really explore all the nooks and crannies of their wisdom and their light and their individual gifts. We can never explore all of it, but boy, I love going down the rabbit hole with people and hearing them what their experience has been and what that has meant to them. That's what I love about what I do. I get to talk to people. And now this is the crazy part, Philippa. Not only do I get to know people as I'm like doing a lot of intuitive, like spiritual mentoring coaching, but I get to connect with their loved ones on the other side. And I'm getting to know these people on the other side that I've never met before, too, right? Because the client is bringing in the mom and the grandma and the brother and the cousin. It is a wonderful thing to be. It's like my spirit guides call me. They used this term one day and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. They called me an in-betweener. And I'm like, what do you mean by that? And they're like, well, you live in between the worlds. And I thought, well,
You're
that's an
doing,
interesting phrase to use.
because of your curiosity and your own light, you intuitively discover the things that have been buried inside other people, and you help them see their and polish, like polish themselves up like a crystal and shine their light, or it's like cleaning the windows kind of thing. That goes back to your birthday cake analogy, where there's so much good in everybody and
So
everybody's
much.
contribution. And we do get hung up on, I was having this conversation with a girlfriend last night, that word purpose, it triggers me, to be honest, because of the way it has been portrayed, as if it's we're striving to find our purpose. But the purpose is to be ourselves 100%, and to enjoy those moments and take the lessons of the moments along the journey.
Yeah, life is just such a journey. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? And what you were saying about purpose is so important. It's interesting because in my Sunday angel message this past week, the angels talked about purpose, but they related it to us going within and connecting with that inner light, because that really is our purpose. Our purpose, you said so brilliantly, is to be ourselves, to just authentically be ourselves. But what we tend to do, like, for example, I have a brother that knew what he wanted to do professionally when he was a young child. And he is a physicist. And he knew when he was a young child he wanted to be a physicist. I don't know how many young children even know what a physicist is. I
Yes.
mean, my kids didn't know what that was. They had an uncle who was a physicist. When we see stories like that, we go, oh, we all want that. At 8 years old, I knew exactly what I'm meant to do in this world. That's not the way my life has played out at all. But I always wanted that. I always wanted to have that strong of a knowing of purpose. But what happened? So after my kids died and I went through this healing process and I had this miraculous experience where the light came in and the darkness went out, I received messages, very direct messages, that I was supposed to do something with this. And so eventually I developed a grief healing program, a grief healing model, a grief coaching program, and began to do that work. And I was in my mid to late 50s at that point. And I remember one day sitting at my desk going, why did my purpose, see that purpose word with the capital P, why did my purpose come so late in life? And you know what I
Yes.
heard? I heard you have always been living your purpose. That's what we have to remember. Our purpose is just in the living. It's just in the being. It's not in the doing. And before I was a grief coach, I worked in corporate for a while and I was a piano teacher. I homeschooled my kids. I was a jack of all trades. I did a lot of things.
But it's
What
that
I
doing that we attach a label to, which defines our purpose, which has got nothing to do with it. They are the experiences that have been planned to help us enjoy life, and so that we get something for ourselves out of it that we can share with other people.
well, in learning little by little by little by little how to really embody authenticity and
Yeah.
being who we are. Because you look at 10 years ago, I was on this path of grief coaching and I was like, why am I just discovering this? And I
Yes.
thought, I'm going to be doing that forever and ever. Guess what? That's not my path now. Now I'm a spiritual teacher. I'm an intuitive. I'm a medium. I connect people with their loved ones on the other side because what was happening, Philippa, is I was having these appointments with people who were grieving their loved ones who had passed. Their loved ones would show up in the room and be whispering in my ear and giving me guidance to help their person that I was helping, but I didn't know how to communicate that.
That
And
really
so,
takes me back to what you were saying about you found all your skills and you have spiritual autonomy. I made a note of it because I thought that's a really scrummy expression, and it's being you with what you've experienced. It's just delicious. Yeah, I love it.
yeah,
Is that
I
what you,
love the way you say that.
is that what you meant by the expression spiritual autonomy?
Yeah, it's allowing ourselves to explore spirituality without the dogma, without the rigidness, without the seriousness of it, without the fear. So I'm talking about the withouts, right? But what we really want is to listen to conversations like this and say, what resonates?
Yeah.
And in any book or conversation or experience that you have, how do you want to interpret that? How do you want to move forward with that new knowledge, that new experience, versus having somebody else define it for you?
Mm.
So, as a spiritual teacher, I can share what my experiences are, and I can share some tools and some things that are helpful in connecting us with the other side and opening ourselves up to the other side. But I can't do it for people. And I can't say these are the rules. That's not my role. I think gone are the days of the guru. I'm not
Yes.
here to be a guru. I'm here to just share.
Well, again, this conversation I was having with my girlfriend last night, and she said she's over putting people on a pedestal. Nobody's on a pedestal. There are no gurus. It just goes to show there are some out there who have been the so-called gurus who are falling flat on their back
They are.
because egos got in the way. But that's another story. So we were talking about one of your skills is being able to help us strengthen the connection with our angels guides. How do we do that? I know there's not a 101, but
Yeah, and part of it is what we talked about before, right? Recognizing, I think a big piece that stands in the way is people thinking that these beings are judging us. So, like getting rid of that idea, realizing that they're loving, that allows us to be more open to it. Opening the door, talking to them, just being willing to talk to them, begin to notice signs. A lot of people that I meet with will say, I'm noticing hummingbirds, but
right.
they're like, I don't know if that's a sign from my spirit guides. And I'm like, well, lean into it.
Yes.
Lean into it. Look up what the spiritual meaning is of a hummingbird.
Yep.
Does it have a message for you?
Mm.
One of the big things that I often teach people that was a huge process for me, like really helped me a lot, was for several months, every single day, I would write down everything that I noticed that caught my attention.
Right.
Numbers, like if I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, like when I was working with somebody earlier today, I saw 1, 2, 3, 4. And so numbers, or like one day I was walking down a path near my house, and it's a path with trees on both sides, and there were cardinals, two on one side, two on the other side. And as I was walking, I noticed them, and they were like flying back and forth across my path. And I thought their behavior was a little unusual, first of all. And I thought that as I moved closer to them, they would fly away. But they weren't flying away. They just continued across my path. It caught my attention. So I wrote that down and I looked up what's the meaning of a cardinal. We can have little resources. The beautiful thing is now we can look that up. We don't have to go to the library. We can instantaneously get some ideas, use some of these tools that have been provided by authors and search engines and so forth, and allow a message that stands out to you to stand out. One day it was at night. I was driving down the road. I live out on some country roads, and this raccoon was running across the road, stopped, and like looked right at me so that the lights were like shining in his eyes. I didn't hit him. He moved before I got that close to him. But I was like, that's really unusual. Like, what does raccoon mean? I looked up raccoon. So when we notice things in nature, because spirit will use nature to get our attention, when we notice unusual happenings, when we notice numbers, numbers have been a big one for me because I'm a numbers person. I like numbers. Math was my favorite subject. So numbers have been a big one for me. I started recording like every day. And what happens is when we start to record, instead of going, is this a message? Is this a message? I just go, oh, that caught my attention. It's a message, right? This animal is acting a little unusual. They're showing up in this way. I'm going to take it as a message. I had a robin that showed up yesterday and brought me a message. And when I looked up what robin meant, I was like, holy cow. That was spot on the message that I needed. And more confirmation of the same message that my angels have been sending me all week long. So confirmation after confirmation. We can ask for confirmation. 2 or 3 years ago, I was making big changes in my life and I was asking my angels, am I on the right path? And again, right path, right? What does that mean? But it does give us an idea. It's not like there's a one way for us to go, but we can be way off or we can be in the direction of our soul plan.
Yep.
That was kind of the question I was asking. And I said, if I am, show me 3 17s. Now, for whatever reason, that week 17 was a number that was standing out to me and had meaning to me. And then I forgot about it. I honestly forgot that I even said that. And 2 or 3 days later, we were driving down the road. I wasn't driving, my husband was driving. We were driving down the road, and I thought, oh, yeah, I asked for the 17s. And I kid you not, 10 seconds later, I look over at the license plate next to me, and there were a couple of 17s on that car. And then somebody had texted me, and I went to text back calendar. Did you know that the calendar emoji has the 17 on it in,
Oh,
in the iPhone? So then there were like 3 17s showing up on my phone, and I look up and there were more 17s on the GPS, and I went, okay, I get it. All within like 20 seconds, like all these 17s. And so I was like, okay, I have full chills even relaying that message to you. And yeah, it was just that confirmation. When we're writing it down, we are being awake and aware, and we're noticing, and they know we're noticing, and we start to create this understanding that they're always there.
the more you talk to them, either in your head, on paper, or out loud, it just opens that mind and your heart to appreciate things that come in. That's a really good tool to actually write it down. Because again, you can look back and you can see a sequence of
Yeah.
it and how things unfold. And it helps strengthen the relationship that we have with ourselves, doesn't it?
It sure does. And the nice thing is we always have our phones with us now, so there's an easy way to take note. I put the date and then I would keep adding to it. And it was multiple times a day. I would write things in there.
Wow, brilliant. I'm definitely going to take that one up. So,
Mhm.
talking of notes and the power of words, has there been a book and or a person that has really influenced you in your life?
Absolutely. So there's been several. I am a huge reader. This week I have books that I'm loving and that are giving me messages, but one that really stands out to me is, I don't know if you're familiar with Anita Moorjani.
Yeah, yeah.
She wrote her book Dying to Be Me.
Oh, I know. It's brilliant, isn't it?
And I've had the opportunity to meet her, and she's
Oh,
as lovely in person as she is online. And yeah, so I would say a book and a person. Anita Moorjani and her book Dying to Be Me, and her other books are brilliant as well. Her Sensitive is the New Strong, that was eye-opening for me.
is that a
That was
new
really
one?
eye. Yeah, I think that's her newest one. It came out 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And then she has another one, I think it's called What If This Is Heaven? And I've read them all.
Just linking that connection, that belief, your own journey has really helped strengthen a relationship with yourself. And know, though your children are not physically with you, that you still have a really strong bond with them as well. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. If we had another few hours, I could tell you more about that. And even the experience
well,
that I
maybe
had with
we
my
will.
daughter on her birthday, I was like, unbelievable.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a quote or something that is always there that keeps you strong inside and is the foundation of who you are?
Well, I love words. And this quote is probably not going to surprise you based on our conversation today, but it's Albert Einstein's quote. There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, the other is as though everything is a miracle. And you can guess that I try to live my life like everything is a miracle.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you for the reminder. Yes, it is magical because of some of the things that have happened, not despite, because of it does enrich us. And we have an amazing array of emotions to help us really be ourselves, don't we? So if I was
Hmm.
your fairy godmother, with all the wisdom that you've acquired, I could grant you one wish in the world. What would you do?
What would I change?
Yes.
That's a really hard one. Honestly, it's a really hard one because, I mean, if I'm being quite honest, I wouldn't change anything because it's not my place to change anything. But one of the things that I hope for in our world is that if we imagine that everybody, Philippa, everybody was living from a heart-centered place, the world would be a different place. We don't have to change the institutions. We don't have to change the way this is done or that is done or the other thing is done. If everybody was heart-centered, it just would be a heart-centered world.
Wow. Thank you. That's very thought provoking and centering. Is there a message that you would like to share from the angels before we go? I've just put you on the spot here, so feel free to say no.
Well, one of the things they always invite me to share is to believe in your spiritual experiences. Lean into the spiritual experiences that you've had, and rather than pushing them away or allowing the illusion of this world to convince you that what you experienced wasn't true, lean into it, believe it. You don't need another person to confirm what you already know. In other words, you can believe in your own experience, whether no one else in the world believes you.
Wow. That is very powerful. And yeah, not coincidentally, that fits in with something. You are my angel because you have just answered something I needed for myself. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. In another message, they're like, we have an opportunity, let's use it. Again, they just send so much love. They're sending so much love, so much comfort. It's interesting because I'm really feeling this message of comfort right now. They're bringing my attention to how much change and upheaval there is in the world, They're inviting us to, when we feel overwhelmed by the chaos, because we're living in a world where the chaos is always present, even if it's not where we live. So they're inviting us to tune out, to be present with where we are and keep reminding ourselves that we are safe where we are. If you are, I imagine the people that are listening to this are people who are living in safe environments. And we actually bring so much peace to the world just by us being present in our own experiences. When we put energy into the negativity that's happening into the world, we're actually, it's like we're flaming the fire in a way that I can't even understand. Just imagine that everybody turned off the news and stopped watching what was going on in the world, all the different battles and the chaos and this person did this person. Imagine if everybody turned that off.
More and more people are. I haven't watched it for like 6 years now.
I turned out of it in 2012. I remember exactly what year it was.
Wow.
When we're feeling overwhelmed, to start looking at what input is coming in. Even myself, like I'm on social media because I love being able to share the angel messages on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And I share a little bit of different things in each one of those platforms. But more recently, I've been feeling more like I need to get off of social media. And I'm not on there that much compared to what some people see. I'm really feeling that that would be beneficial to me, is to disengage from it more and be more selective about what I view.
Yeah, as you say,
But
consciously discern what is serving you. And whilst it does serve you and I, particularly as podcasters, we are sharing our message, which doesn't mean to say that we have to as much time. I'm just trying to remember who it was. Oh, there's a psychic, Nikki Allen.
oh
And
yeah,
she's so much fun. She's bonkers. But
she's so cute. Sometimes I wish, how can I have her personality? But I'm like, that's not authentically me.
yeah, I'd love to get her on the podcast. She's just raw and real the way that she shares it. She talks about not getting involved so much and drawn in so much to the social media side and being authentic. And she epitomizes what it is because she's high energy. So you couldn't be in her energy for, and I'm quite high energy for any length of time. Just discerning what serves you. Hey,
Yeah.
like music, sometimes we need that twinkly, twinkly stuff to calm us down, and other times we need that thing to get us bopping, to energize us.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for an amazing conversation today. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and you most definitely are my angel, because I got a couple of messages for myself in that.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. It was delightful. I just really enjoyed this.
Well, that's what it's all about. That's why we do it, isn't it? To have fun.
It is. It is for sure.
Okay.
Follow the fun. Follow the fun.
Follow the fun. I like that mantra. I'll keep that one. You take care, Julie.
All right. Thank you.
That was such a juicy conversation, and I loved what she left us with, following your fun. And I encourage you to have some fun getting to know your angels and guides. Nobody need know what you're doing. They're hanging out there waiting to talk to you. And remember, they won't judge you. Don't forget to share this episode if you've enjoyed the pearls of wisdom you've heard today. Please let me know by writing a review, as they're always appreciated. As are any ideas for subjects or guests you'd like me to have. Just email me on info@philippaross.com with any of your suggestions. So until next month, have fun, dig deep, open your mind to a world of possibilities, live life with a generous heart, and take steps to minimize waste and maximize your potential.